The new dietary guidelines in the US are out. And of course, everyone is making videos about it. But hardly anyone seems to understand what's actually behind it. The average person definitely doesn't. The media is spinning its own propaganda. And the carnivores, they are throwing a massive party. Honestly, this whole spectacle is hilarious. It's like they have dropped some world-first discovery, as if anyone has ever actually followed the guidelines. The new guidelines are like, we want to shift the focus to natural, unprocessed foods. Now everyone is freaking out, trying to figure out what ultra-processed foods actually are. As if it wasn't obvious before. And no, this isn't new information or some grand achievement. All dietary recommendations are based on unprocessed natural whole foods. Yes, even the old US guidelines. I'm not going to tear apart the entire set of guidelines in this video. Let's focus on protein, because I believe the new protein recommendations are a massive scam and a total scandal. But first, the new guidelines place a heavy focus on protein, especially animal-based foods. Do I smell a conspiracy here? First, let's clarify. Is this focus on protein even justified? Is protein really such a huge problem in the US? Spoiler, no. It's ridiculous. The new guidelines raised the protein recommendation from the previous 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight to 1.2 to 1.6 grams. I've already explained it in another video. Americans do not eat very little meat, despite what some carnivore influencers and doctors claim. Their protein intake isn't 60 to 80 grams per capita per day only. Quite the opposite. That's the average for the elderly maybe, at most. On average, Americans eat about 100 to 120 grams of protein per day. If you exclude the elderly, the average is probably much higher. This means most people easily reach 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. For comparison, science recommends about 1.6 grams per kilogram for athletes. And most people are not athletes. Fuck, most people are lazy asses and have nothing to do with growing muscle. It's just ridiculous. So what's the problem with protein? Again, Americans do not eat much less meat than Europeans, despite what social media zealots claim. The USA is among the top 5 countries with the highest meat consumption worldwide, sharing 4th place with Hong Kong, and they are shoveling it in. So again, where is the fucking problem with protein? Exactly, there's none. So what justifies this focus on protein? Exactly, nothing. The biggest problem Americans have is the unregulated consumption of ultra-processed junk. So US government, if you actually want to sustainably improve the health of your citizens, regulate the market and the big industries. But instead, you'd rather take bribes from the meat and dairy industries and put out BS guidelines. Oh yeah, it stinks of rotten conspiracy. And it's visible to everyone. They don't even make a secret of it. This bias is no coincidence. It's the result of a deeply rooted structural link between politics and the agricultural lobby. The USDA's institutional paradox. The Department of Agriculture, USDA, has an unsolvable conflict of interest. Mandate A, to promote the sale of American agricultural products, especially beef and dairy. Mandate B, to create dietary guidelines for the health of the citizens. Since the meat and dairy industries are among the most powerful economic sectors in the US, Mandate A usually wins. Conflicts of interest in the advisory board. Investigations show a systematic problem in the selection of experts. Financial ties. A large majority of the scientific committee members have had direct or indirect financial ties to the industry. For example, research funding from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association or the National Dairy Council. Lobbying pressure. The meat industry invests millions annually in political lobbying to ensure that terms like "eat less meat" do not appear in the final text. Instead, vague phrases like "choose lean protein" or "now avoid ultra-processed foods" are used to distract from actual meat consumption. And further, not a single word about food quality, not a word about organic, grass-fed, or anything like that. Nothing. This isn't in the interest of human health. It's only in the interest of big meat and big dairy. And funny how they've pushed grains, beans, and legumes, complex carbs, to the very bottom, suggesting they should only be consumed in small amounts. I mean, we can argue about gluten-containing GMO grains, but beans and lentils are among the healthiest foods in the world. This has nothing to do with science. Science clearly shows that beans and lentils are incredibly valuable. So what are they hoping for? That instead of ultra-processed carbs, which, by the way, always come packaged with cheap processed fats and proteins, people will suddenly start consuming high-quality, healthy, unprocessed animal products, as if by magic. What kind of logic is that? No. Now Americans can and will finally eat their processed junk meat and cheap animal products with a clear conscience. Great. But you people are forgetting the most important part. The victims in the slaughterhouses who are subjected to unnecessary and unbelievable suffering and terror, the animals. But hey, let's focus on protein. Torturing and killing hundreds of billions of animals every year apparently isn't enough. Great idea.